Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all are doing fine and preparing well, and importantly watching videos, solving PYQs and reading these PDF notes. And today we are taking on one of the most important chapter in literary criticism. Can you guess what is it? Yes, it's chapter 3, Neoclassical Criticism, where we are going to discuss everyone who belongs to this time period, for example like Dryden, Pope, Swift, Samuel Johnson and others. So let's begin with Thomas Hobbes. When we think of the origins of modern political thought, one name that immediately stands out is Thomas Hobbes. Born in 1588, Hobbes was an English philosopher whose work reached far beyond politics. He wrote on history, jurisprudence, geometry, theology, ethics and general philosophy, and yes, this wide range has been asked in exam. His most famous and enduring work is Leviathan, published in 1651, asked in exam. The full title is worth remembering, Leviathan or The Matter. Form and Power of a Commonwealth, Ecclesiastical and Civil, a title that appeared across editions between 1651 and 1668, W, asked in exam. The name Leviathan comes from the biblical sea monster which Hobbes used as a metaphor for the immense and unified power of the sovereign state. Pause here and note this down. Hobbes's central contribution lies in his theory of the social contract. He began by analyzing human nature. Left alone, Hobbes said, humans are driven by self-interest, competition and fear. In this state of nature, life is unstable, insecure, and marked by a constant fear of violent death. His famous line sums it up: life in this condition is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Can you recall the solution Hobbes offered? To escape this chaos, individuals agree through a social contract to surrender some of their freedoms and transfer authority to a sovereign power. This sovereign could be a monarch or a ruling body, but the key idea is indivisible, centralized power. Only absolute sovereignty, Hobbes argued, can maintain peace, prevent conflict, and protect individuals from slipping back into anarchy. In Leviathan, Hobbes even outlined 12 principal rights of the sovereign, all designed to secure stability, enforce civil obedience, and ensure the survival of the Commonwealth. His radical claim was that absolute sovereignty is not tyranny, but the rational outcome of human self-preservation. When we talk about the Enlightenment, one figure towers above the rest in shaping modern thought: John Locke. Born in 1632, Locke was not only a philosopher but also a physician. He is often called the father of liberalism for his decisive role in shaping modern political philosophy and theories of knowledge. His ideas influenced Voltaire, Rousseau, Hume, Kant, the Scottish Enlightenment, and even the American revolutionaries. Beyond politics, Locke also laid the groundwork for how we think about personal identity and the self. He was the first to argue that our identity lies in the continuity of consciousness, that what makes you you is not substance or body, but your stream of psychological experience over time. Pause here and note this. Locke gave us one of the most enduring metaphors in philosophy: the mind at birth as a tabula rasa, or blank slate, gradually filled by experience, asked in exam. This was revolutionary because it rejected the rationalist idea of innate knowledge. Instead, he insisted that all knowledge originates in sensory experience. This became the cornerstone of empiricism. His most important book is An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, published in 1689, asked at exam. This text systematically unfolds across 4 books. In Book 1, Locke rejects innate principles, showing that the human mind has no preformed ideas. In Book 2, he develops his famous theory of ideas, distinguishing between simple ideas like red, sweet, or round passively received, and complex ideas like numbers, causal relations, and abstractions, which the mind actively constructs. Now here's something examiners love to ask: Locke's distinction between primary and secondary qualities. Primary qualities such as shape, motion, or extension exist independently of us. Secondary qualities like color, taste, or sound exist only in relation to our senses. So the world has both objective features and subjective experiences layered upon them. In Book 3, Locke turns to language. He explores how words represent ideas and how miscommunication often arises from unclear usage. In many ways, this foreshadows later debates in semantics and philosophy of language. Finally, Book 4 examines the limits of human knowledge. Here, Locke maps out the scope of certainty from intuition and mathematics to natural philosophy, what we now call science, to morality, faith, and opinion. Let's step into the Scottish Enlightenment with David Hume, one of the most influential philosophers of modern times. Born in 1711, Hume built his reputation on empiricism, skepticism, and naturalism. He wanted nothing less than a full science of man not based on abstract metaphysics but on observation and experience. He rejected the idea of innate knowledge, insisting that everything we know comes from experience. His thought still shapes debates in epistemology, ethics, and aesthetics. His first great work was A Treatise of Human Nature, written between 1739 and 1740. Asked in exam, Hume himself joked that it fell dead born from the press, but it remains the foundation of his philosophy. The treatise is divided into 3 books. Book 1, Of the Understanding, studies the origin of ideas, space and time, probability and causality, ending with deeply skeptical conclusions about what we can know. Book 2, Of the Passions, shifts to psychology, showing how emotions guide our actions while reason is only a servant to the passions. Book 3, Of Morals, argues that moral distinctions arise not from cold reason but from sentiments of approval and disapproval. Altogether, the treatise paints humans as creatures guided less by logic than by habit and feeling. Disappointed with its poor reception, Hume reworked the material into An Enquiry Concerning Human Understanding, published in 1748, asked in exam. This shorter, clearer text distilled his key ideas. Here he explained that our belief in causality doesn't come from logical necessity, but from repeated habit. We see events happen together, and so we expect them to repeat. The enquiry included sections on probability, miracles, providence, liberty, and necessity, and even the reasoning of animals. And here's the golden connection. It was this book that awakened Immanuel Kant from his dogmatic slumber, reshaping the entire course of modern philosophy. Hume also extended his empiricism into aesthetics. In Off the Standard of Taste, asked in exam, he admitted it's hard to define universal beauty, but he suggested that a truly experienced, impartial, and sensitive critic could serve as a measure of refined taste. In Of Tragedy, he asked why we enjoy sorrowful dramas. His answer, because when we know it's fiction, negative emotions are transformed into aesthetic pleasure. When we think of the Enlightenment, one name towers above almost all others, Immanuel Kant. Born in 1724, Kant is often described as the central figure of modern philosophy. His work transformed debates on knowledge, morality, and aesthetics, and it still shapes literature and theory today. Kant's great project was to answer David Hume's skepticism. He argued that knowledge is possible, but only because the mind structures experience. Space and time are not out there waiting for us to perceive. They are the forms of intuition through which we see everything. This is why Kant said that while things in themselves exist, we can never truly know them. We only ever encounter phenomena, appearances, filtered through the mind. His first great book, Critique of Pure Reason, published in 1781 and revised in 1787, is a cornerstone of philosophy, asked in exam. Here, Kant investigated whether synthetic a priori knowledge is possible. He distinguished between noumena, things as they are in themselves, and phenomena, things as we perceive them. This book set strict limits on what metaphysics can and cannot do. But Kant didn't stop there. In Ethics, his groundwork of the metaphysic of morals in 1785, followed by the critique of practical reason in 1788, built a moral system based on reason. Here he introduced the categorical imperative, the principle that one must act only on maxims that could be universally willed. This gave moral life a foundation in autonomy and duty, treating every human being as an end in themselves, never as a means. And then came the third part of his system, the Critique of Judgment, published in 1790, asked in exam. This book brought together aesthetics and teleology, and it is sometimes called the Third Critique. Pause here because this too was asked in exam. It is divided into the Critique of Aesthetic Judgment and the Critique of Teleological Judgment, asked in exam. In the section on aesthetics, Kant introduced the four moments of the judgment of taste, quality, quantity, relation, and modality. These categories explain how something as personal as beauty can make a claim to universal agreement. He also distinguished between the agreeable, the beautiful, the sublime, and the good. Most striking is his discussion of the sublime, that paradoxical pleasure we feel when faced with vastness or overwhelming power in nature, which reminds us that reason can rise above sensory fear.